The desert was a lonely place, but Arun had learned to call it home. His small house stood near the edge of the dunes, built from stone and clay that kept the inside cool during the day and warm during the night. The wide sky stretched above him, bright and cloudless in the day and filled with stars at night. Many people found the desert harsh and empty, but Arun liked the silence. It gave him peace after years of living in crowded towns where noise never ended. That evening the sun was falling behind the western hills. The sky turned orange and gold, and the sand glowed with soft light. Arun had spent the afternoon fixing a water pipe that connected his tank to the underground well. Life in the desert required care and patience. Water was precious. He wiped the dust from his face and stepped back into the house. His muscles ached, but he felt proud that the pipe was working again. He pushed open the wooden door and entered the dim interior. His home was simple, with only a few chairs, a small table, a bed, and shelves filled with jars of dried food. He lit the old lamp, its flame flickering softly. For a moment he thought everything was as it had always been. Then his eyes caught a shadow in the corner. Someone was there. Arun froze in the doorway. His first thought was that a thief had entered, though it was rare in such a remote place. Slowly, he set the small tool he carried onto the table. The figure stood very still, as if waiting. When the light of the lamp reached her face, Arun felt his breath catch. It was not a thief. It was not even a person like any he had ever seen. The figure was a woman, but different in ways that unsettled him. Her skin carried a faint glow, pale silver like the edge of the moon. Her eyes reflected light with strange colors, shifting from blue to green to violet. Her hair was long and flowed like threads of night. She looked frightened, yet her beauty was otherworldly, fragile, and unearthly. The woman froze when she saw Arun. Her body tensed as though she had been discovered doing something she should not. Her wide eyes locked on his, and she did not speak. Arun raised his hand slowly, showing he held no weapon. His voice was calm but firm. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman did not answer. She pressed her back against the wall, her breathing quick and shallow. For a moment Arun thought she might run, but she stayed still, watching him with fear. Arun took a step forward, then stopped, not wanting to frighten her more. He noticed that her clothes were torn, made of strange material that shimmered faintly. Dust and sand clung to her, and her hands shook as if she had been wandering for days. She looked weak, almost ready to collapse. "I will not hurt you," Arun said, his voice softer. "This is my home. You do not need to be afraid." The woman blinked, her lips trembling. At last she spoke, but her words were broken, shaped with an accent unlike any language Arun knew. "No harm, please hide." Her voice was low and filled with fear. She spoke as if every word cost her great effort. Arun tried to make sense of it. Who was she? What was she hiding from, and why was she in his home of all places? He walked to the small table and poured water into a clay cup. Then he set it on the floor and stepped back. He gestured toward it. "Drink, you look tired." The woman looked at him with doubt, but her thirst was clear. Slowly she stepped forward, her movements cautious like a wild animal unsure if it could trust. She took the cup in both hands and drank quickly, almost desperately. When she finished, she looked at him again, her eyes softer but still guarded. "My name is Arun," he said gently. "I live here." "Who are you?" The woman hesitated. She lowered her gaze as if the name she carried was something dangerous. Then she whispered, "Nira." The name hung in the air, delicate and strange. Arun nodded. "Nira, you are safe here, but you must tell me why you are hiding. This desert has nothing but sand and sky. Who is chasing you?" At his words, Nira's body stiffened. She shook her head quickly. "No chase here, safe, please." Her voice carried both hope and fear. She wanted safety, but she did not trust that it could last. Arun sensed that pressing her too hard would make her flee, and he could see how weak she was. He chose silence. Instead, he prepared a small meal. Bread warmed on the pan, dates placed on a plate, and another cup of water. He set it on the table and stepped back again. Nira watched every movement, her eyes sharp and alert as though she expected a trick. When nothing happened, she slowly approached the food. She ate with small bites, yet the hunger in her movements was clear. As she ate, Arun studied her more closely. The glow of her skin was faint, but it grew brighter in the lamp's light. Her hands were long and slender, her fingers tipped with delicate lines that looked almost like patterns of light beneath her skin. Her eyes never stopped moving, reflecting colors that did not belong to Earth. She was no ordinary woman. Nira finished eating and sat in silence. Aaron sat across the room, not too close, giving her space. For a long time they said nothing. Only the wind outside broke the silence, whistling through the cracks in the walls. At last Nira looked at him again. Her eyes softened and she spoke more words, halting but clear. I come far. No place, no friend. Only hide, you... Human, Aaron nodded. Yes, human. She touched her chest lightly. Not human. From sky. The word sent a chill through Aaron. He had always looked at the stars with wonder, but never imagined one of them would send someone to his own home. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but he saw the fear in her face. She had risked much to say, even that much. Aaron leaned back, his mind racing. A being from the sky, sitting in his house asking only to hide. He could hardly believe it, but the truth was in her eyes and in the way her very presence felt different from any human. The lamp flickered and shadows stretched across the walls. The desert night was growing colder, but inside the small house something new had begun. Two strangers from different worlds now shared one roof. Aaron spoke softly, his voice steady. You can stay tonight. You are safe here. Tomorrow we will think what to do. Nira's shoulders relaxed slightly, and for the first time her expression showed more than fear. It showed relief. She pulled the blanket he offered around her, curling up near the wall. Her glowing skin dimmed as her eyes closed, like a star sinking beneath the horizon. Aaron sat awake a long time, staring at her and listening to the quiet night. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing with certainty. His life in the desert, once empty and silent, had changed forever. Morning came slowly over the desert. The first rays of light touched the dunes, painting them in shades of gold and red. Inside the small house, Aaron woke to the faint sound of breathing that was not his own. For a moment he thought yesterday had been a dream, but when he turned his head, he saw her. Nira was still there, sitting by the wall with the blanket wrapped around her. Her eyes were open, bright with strange colors that shifted as the light entered the room. She was awake, watching him. The glow of her skin was softer than it had been at night, almost hidden by the daylight. Aaron sat up slowly, careful not to alarm her. She stiffened at his movement but did not run. He greeted her with a simple word. Good morning. Nira tilted her head as if trying to understand. Her lips moved, repeating the word softly. Good morning? Her voice was uncertain, but the effort was clear. Aaron gave a small smile. He realized she was trying to learn. That gave him a sense of hope. He stood and prepared food. Flat bread, a little cheese, and water from the jar. Nira watched every movement, her eyes following his hands. When he set the food on the table, he stepped back as he had the night before. Nira came forward slowly, still cautious, and ate in silence. Aaron studied her closely as she ate. She looked tired, as if her strength had not returned. Her hands shook slightly as she held the bread. Yet there was also something graceful in the way she moved. He wondered how far she had traveled to reach this place and what dangers she had faced. When she finished, Aaron tried again to speak with her. You came from the sky, he said slowly, pointing upward. Nira's eyes followed his hand. She nodded once. Sky far. Aaron continued. Why are you here? Nira hesitated. Her face showed pain, not from the body but from memory. She lowered her head, her voice barely above a whisper. Run, escape, safe no more. Her words were broken, but Aaron understood enough. She was running from something. She had escaped danger. Escape from who? He asked gently. Nira shook her head quickly. Fear returned to her eyes. She placed a hand over her chest as if to guard herself. Then she spoke one clear word. Hunters. The sound of it made the room colder. Aaron felt a chill run through him. Hunters. Whoever they were powerful enough to send fear into her heart. Aaron decided not to push further. He could see that speaking of them hurt her. Instead, he changed the subject. He pointed at himself. Aaron, then he pointed at her. Nira? Nira looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Aaron. Nira. Her voice softened when she said his name. The rest of the morning passed in silence. Aaron went outside to check the water pipe again, and to gather dry wood for the evening fire. He kept glancing back toward the house, worried that Nira might vanish. But each time he returned, she was still there watching the door, her eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting danger. By afternoon, the heat was heavy. The desert sun pressed down like a burning weight. Aaron stayed inside where the thick walls kept the air cooler. Nira sat near the window, staring out at the endless sand. She seemed lost in thought. Aaron tried again to speak. He pointed at objects around the room, naming them slowly. Table, chair, lamp, bread. Nira listened carefully, repeating the words. Sometimes she said them perfectly, other times she struggled. When she made mistakes, she frowned in frustration, but Aaron encouraged her gently. Her voice grew stronger with each attempt. Then she pointed at him. Human. Yes, Aaron said. Human. She pointed at herself. Not human, Aaron nodded. Not human. From sky. Her eyes softened as if she was relieved that he understood. She reached out and touched the edge of the lamp with her fingers. The metal glowed faintly at her touch, as if reacting to her. Aaron watched in surprise. She pulled her hand away quickly, as if ashamed. You can do things I cannot, Arun said slowly. Nira looked at him, then turned her eyes away. Danger, must hide. The words were heavy with meaning. Aaron wondered if the hunters were looking for her because of such powers. He wanted to ask more, but he respected her silence. As the sun lowered, Arun went outside again. The sky began to change, and soon the first stars appeared. He always loved watching them, but now they felt different. Somewhere out there was Nira's home. Somewhere out there were the hunters searching for her. When he returned inside, he found Nira standing in the middle of the room, staring at the ceiling. She seemed restless, her hands moving slightly as if shaping invisible patterns in the air. Aaron spoke her name softly. Nira. She turned quickly, her face full of fear. For a moment it looked like she might run. Then she saw his calm expression and stopped. It is all right, Arun said. You are safe here, her lips trembled. She whispered, safe. Only little. Hunters come. Aaron felt his heart tighten. He wanted to tell her that she was wrong, that no one would find her here, but deep inside he knew she might be right. Strange lights had been seen in the desert before. People in the nearby town often told stories of moving stars. He had never believed them fully. But now he wondered. That night, as the fire burned softly, Nira sat near it with her eyes half closed. Aaron sat across from her, thinking deeply. His life had always been simple. Work, food, rest, and silence. Now everything was different. A being from the stars was in his home, frightened and hunted. He did not know what would come next, but he felt something stir in his chest, a sense of duty he had never known before. The desert wind howled outside, carrying sand across the dunes. Inside the small house, silence settled again, but it was no longer the silence of loneliness. It was the silence of two souls, human and alien, sitting together and waiting for the unknown. Aaron looked at Nira one last time before sleeping. Her glowing skin reflected the firelight, soft and fragile. She had trusted him enough to stay. That trust was now in his hands. Whatever came, he knew he could not let her face it alone. And far above, in the endless night sky, unseen eyes were already searching. The desert night was silent, but Aaron did not sleep well. He turned again and again on his bed, his thoughts heavy. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Nira's fearful face, and every time he drifted close to rest, the memory of her whisper returned to him. Hunters. The word carried weight, and it would not leave his mind. When the first light of dawn touched the sky, Aaron rose. He pushed the door open and stepped outside. The air was cool, and the desert stretched endlessly, calm and quiet. For a moment, he almost believed that life was still simple, but then he turned his eyes upward. The sky looked the same as always, yet now it felt different. Somewhere above, far beyond what he could see, there were beings searching, beings powerful enough to send Nira fleeing across the stars. When Arun returned inside, he found Nira awake. She sat near the small window watching the dunes. Her blanket had fallen from her shoulders, and the glow of her skin was faint in the daylight. She looked tired, yet her eyes were alert, always scanning. Aaron greeted her gently. Morning, she gave a small nod. Morning, she said, her voice soft but more steady than before. Aaron prepared food for them both. As they ate, he noticed how Nira watched him carefully, copying the way he held the bread, the way he drank from the cup. She was learning more each day. The thought gave him a strange sense of pride. After the meal, Aaron stepped outside again and Nira followed him. It was the first time she had left the house since arriving. She stood close to the wall, her eyes wide as she looked at the endless sand and the rising sun. She breathed deeply as if tasting the air. Aaron watched her. It is the desert, he said. Hot, dry, but it has its own life. Nira listened, though she might not have understood all his words. She bent down and touched the sand with her fingers. For a moment, the grains of sand shimmered faintly at her touch, then returned to normal. She pulled her hand back quickly, glancing at Arun to see if he noticed. He did, but he said nothing. He did not want to make her feel ashamed. Instead, he pointed toward the horizon. Far away there is a town. People live there. But here, only me. Nira's eyes followed his hand. Town, people. She repeated the words carefully. Then she shook her head. No people. No see hide, Arun nodded. He understood. She could not risk being seen. The day passed slowly. Arun worked on simple tasks, fixing the roof where the wind had loosened stones, checking the water supply, and gathering wood for the night fire. Nira stayed close, always watching the sky. Several times Arun caught her looking upward with fear, as if she expected something to appear at any moment. That night, when the stars returned, Arun and Nira sat outside together. The desert sky was wide and filled with countless points of light. Arun had always loved this view. It made him feel small but also free. He pointed upward. Stars. Nira's eyes shone as she followed his gesture. Stars, she repeated. Her voice carried both sadness and longing. You came from there, Arun said softly. Nira nodded. She hesitated, then spoke more clearly than before. Farstar, not safe. Many rules, no free. I escape. Her words were broken, but Arun understood the meaning. She had fled her world because freedom was not allowed. The hunters she feared must have been sent to capture those who resisted. Arun asked carefully. They will come here. Nira's body tensed. She looked at him with wide eyes, then nodded slowly. Yes, they never stop. Arun felt a cold weight in his chest. His home had always been quiet, untouched by the troubles of the larger world. But now it was part of something far greater. He looked at Nira, her glowing skin reflecting the starlight. She had risked everything to be free, and now she trusted him enough to stay. As they sat in silence, a sudden light appeared in the sky. At first Arun thought it was only a falling star, but the light did not fade. Instead it moved slowly, too steady to be natural. Nira gasped. Her hands clutched the edge of the blanket tightly. Not star, she whispered. Hunter, Arun stared, his heart pounding. The light grew brighter, then dimmed, moving across the sky before vanishing behind the distant hills. It left no trail. The silence of the desert returned, but the air felt heavy. They are here, Nira said. Her voice was filled with fear. Arun looked at her, then back at the sky. He had no weapons, no power, nothing but his small house and his will. Yet in that moment he made a decision. He could not let her face the hunters alone. You are safe here, he said firmly. I will help you. Nira's eyes widened. Help me, she asked softly. Yes, Arun said. You are not alone. She stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she gave the smallest nod. Her eyes shimmered with colors, not only fear now, but also something else. Hope. The next days passed with tension. Each night strange lights moved in the sky. Sometimes they were faint, sometimes bright, always in silence. Arun and Nira stayed hidden inside, speaking in low voices. She taught him more of her words, and he taught her more of his. Step by step they began to understand each other better. One evening, while the wind howled outside, Nira told him more of her story. Her words were broken, but Arun listened with patience. She came from a world where every choice was controlled. Her people lived under strict rule. Their lives watched closely. Freedom was forbidden. Some obeyed, but others resisted. She had been one of those who wanted more. They call us lost ones, she said quietly. But we are not lost. We want free, Arun listened, his heart heavy. He had left the noisy towns of Earth because he wanted peace. But even in his loneliness, he had never been denied freedom. To live without it was unthinkable. He understood why she had risked everything to escape. When she finished, she looked at him with worried eyes. Hunter's strong. You human. They hurt you. Arun shook his head. I will not let them take you. Her lips trembled. Why? Because you came here for freedom, he said simply. And no one should take that away. The words hung between them, firm and true. That night as they sat near the fire, Nira reached out her hand slowly. Arun hesitated, then placed his hand in hers. Her touch was warm and faint light pulsed beneath her skin. For the first time since arriving, she smiled. It was small and fragile, but it carried more meaning than words. The desert remained silent, but both of them knew the silence would not last. The hunters were close. The signs in the sky were clear. Yet in that moment, sitting together, they felt stronger. Aaron looked at the flames and thought of the future. He did not know how a simple man of the desert could stand against beings from the stars, but he knew one thing with certainty. He would try. Humanity was not weak, and he would show the hunters that courage could rise even from the quietest corners of Earth. Above them, the stars watched in silence. The days grew heavier with tension. The desert sun still rose every morning, hot and merciless, but the peace that once filled the land was gone. Strange lights moved in the sky each night, silent and steady. Sometimes Arun and Nira would sit outside and watch them pass, their hearts pounding as the lights slid across the stars. Other times the lights flashed, then vanished suddenly as though searching. Nira's fear grew sharper with every passing day. She spent long hours sitting near the small window of the house, her eyes always watching the horizon. Even when she ate or drank, she moved with the tense alertness of someone who expected danger at any moment. Aaron noticed how little she slept. He would rise in the night and find her still awake, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark as she watched the door. One morning, as the air shimmered with heat, Aaron stepped outside to check the water pipe. Nira followed him, but she did not look at the ground or the dunes. She looked up. Her hand rose slowly, pointing toward the sky. Aaron followed her gaze and saw a faint glimmer. At first he thought it was only sunlight reflecting on the edge of a cloud, but there were no clouds in the desert sky. The light grew sharper, moving with steady purpose. Nira whispered a word he did not fully understand, but her fear was clear. Hunters. Aaron's chest tightened. For years his life had been untouched by anything beyond the desert. Now the sky itself carried danger. He looked at Nira, who stood close to him, her trembling hands clutching the edge of her torn cloak. "We will stay hidden," Aaron said. His voice was firm, though his heart shook. That night they did not light the lamp. The small house remained in darkness. They sat together in silence, listening to the wind sweep across the dunes. Every now and then Nira would rise and move to the window, her eyes catching faint flashes in the distance. Aaron sat near the door with a long stick he sometimes used for walking. It was no real weapon, but holding it gave him a small sense of strength. On the third day, the silence of the desert broke. Aaron was gathering wood near the rocky hills when a sound filled the air. It was not the cry of birds or the howl of the wind. It was sharp, mechanical, and strange. He crouched low, his eyes scanning the open land. From behind the hills came a shape. At first it looked like a large bird, but as it drew closer, Aaron saw that it was no living creature. It was a machine, metal and smooth, moving without wings. It hovered above the sand, its surface shining in the sun. Beneath it, beams of pale light scanned the ground. The machine turned slowly, searching the land with silent purpose. Aaron's breath caught. He pressed himself against the rocks and waited. The machine drifted closer, its light sweeping across the sand. He prayed it would not reach him. At last, with a low hum, it turned away, gliding toward the horizon. Arun waited until it was gone, then ran back to the house as fast as he could. When he burst through the door, Nira was already standing, her face pale. She had felt it too. "Hunter machine," she whispered. Aaron nodded, his chest heaving. "They are searching." From that moment, their lives changed. They no longer stayed near the house during the day. Instead, Aaron led Nira into the desert where the dunes and rocks gave them cover. They carried only what they needed, water and bread wrapped in cloth. The house was no longer safe. Each night they returned, moving carefully, keeping the lamps dark. Aaron felt the weight of fear growing heavier, but he also felt something else. Nira stayed close to him, trusting him with each step. She asked questions about the land, about the animals that sometimes crossed the sand, about the plants he grew near his well. Her words were broken, but her curiosity was strong. One evening, as they sat hidden among rocks, she asked, "Why you stay alone here, empty land?" No family. Aaron looked at her quietly. It was the first time she had asked about his life. He thought of the town he had left behind, the noise, the endless talk of people, the quarrels that had filled his days. He had wanted peace, and the desert had given it to him, but peace had also brought loneliness. "I wanted silence," he said at last. "No noise, only sky, only wind." Nira listened carefully, her eyes gentle. And now Aaron looked at her, at the glow of her skin under the starlight, at the way she clutched the blanket around her thin shoulders. "Now," he said slowly, "I am not alone." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. For the first time since she had arrived, her face held warmth rather than fear. The days passed and the search grew stronger. More machines appeared, scanning the sand. Sometimes Aaron and Nira saw strange shadows moving across the sky, larger shapes that blocked the stars. The hunters were drawing closer. One night, as they sat near the fire deep in the canyon, Nira laughed softly. Aaron looked at her in surprise. It was not a loud laugh, but gentle, almost like a breeze. "What is it?" he asked. She covered her mouth, her eyes shining. "You try my word." Wrong sound. Funny. Aaron realized she was speaking of the alien word she had taught him earlier that day. He had tried to repeat it, but his tongue had not shaped it correctly. He laughed too, shaking his head. For a moment the fear faded, replaced by lightness. That night, while she slept, Arun sat awake, staring at the stars. He thought of her laughter, of her smile. He thought of the courage she carried inside her, even with the hunters close. He had once believed the desert gave him peace, but now he understood it had given him emptiness. It was Nira who filled that emptiness. Nira who gave meaning to his days. The hunters would come soon. Aaron knew that hiding would not last forever. Machines had already scanned near the hills, and sooner or later they would reach the house. But he also knew that he would not run from them. He had made a silent promise to himself. He would stand. The next morning, the sun rose bright and hot. Arun and Nira climbed to the top of a dune to scan the land. From there, they saw it clearly. 3 machines were moving across the desert, their lights sweeping the sand in wide circles. They were coming closer to the house. Nira's face grew pale. "They near." Aaron placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We will not let them take you." She looked at him with wide eyes. "You risk." "They strong." Aaron's voice was steady. "I am human. We do not give up." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she nodded, her eyes shimmering with both fear and trust. They climbed down the dune together, the sand sliding under their feet. The search had begun and time was running out. The desert that had once been a place of silence was now a battlefield waiting to awaken. The desert was no longer silent. The sound of the machines carried across the dunes like the growl of thunder. Arun and Nira stood at the edge of the canyon, watching as 3 bright shapes drew nearer with each hour. Their light swept the sand in wide circles, searching every shadow, every stone. The hunters had come close at last. Aaron's heart pounded, but he kept his face steady. He had lived his life in this land, breathing the dry air, drinking the water of the well he had dug with his own hands. He had always chosen peace, but now peace was gone. In its place came duty. Nira was no longer only a stranger hiding in his home. She was someone who trusted him. He could not let her be taken. "We must move," Nira whispered. Her voice shook as her glowing eyes looked at the machines. "They see how soon?" Aaron nodded. "Yes, we cannot wait." They gathered what little they had. A small bag of food, 2 water skins, and the thin blankets that shielded them from the cold nights. Nira carried the old cloak that she always wrapped tight around her shoulders. Together they slipped away from the house and moved into the deeper desert. As they walked, the wind rose, carrying sand across the open land. The dunes shifted, hiding their footprints. The hunters still searched, but the desert was wide. For a short time, they were safe. When night fell, Aaron lit no fire. He and Nira huddled together beneath the rocks. The stars spread above them, but their beauty no longer brought comfort. Every flash in the sky might be another machine. Every shadow on the sand might be an enemy. Nira spoke softly. "Aaron, why you help me, you know danger. You know they not stop. Why you not leave me?" Aaron looked at her. Even in the faint light, her face was filled with both fear and strength. "Because you need me, and because I choose to stand. I cannot run while they hunt you. My land, my home, my heart tells me to protect you." For a long time, Nira said nothing. Then she placed her hand over his. It was light, trembling, but full of trust. The next day, the machines grew bolder. One passed so close that Aaron and Nira felt the heat of its scanning light sweep across the rocks. They crouched low, holding their breath until it moved away. Aaron knew they could not hide forever. That night, as the wind howled, Nira spoke again. "They follow me. They not stop. Only way to end is fight." Aaron turned to her. "Fight them how?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "I know they're weak. My people make hunters, but also break them. Need courage. Need chance." Aaron listened carefully. This was the first time she had spoken of fighting back. Until now, all they had done was hide. But her words stirred something inside him. He thought of his quiet life, of the well, of the silence he had once believed was enough. Now he saw that silence alone could not hold meaning. Only action could. "What is their weakness?" he asked. Nira drew shapes in the sand with her finger. "Machine heart is here. Small, bright. If strike with strong force, machine stop. But heart hide deep inside. Must break shell first." Aaron studied the marks she made. The machines were strong, built of smooth metal, but he knew the desert. He knew its rocks, its cliffs, its storms. He thought of the canyon near the old well where the wind carved sharp stones. If the machines passed through there, he might use the land itself against them. He looked at Nira and spoke with quiet strength. "Then we fight." She held his gaze, her eyes glowing softly. "You ready?" "I'm human," Aaron said. "I do not give up." The plan was simple but dangerous. Aaron would lead one of the machines into the canyon. The rocks there could fall if struck with enough force. If he timed it right, the weight of the land itself might crush the shell of the machine and expose its heart. Nira, though weaker, would guide him with her knowledge, telling him when the machine was most open. At dawn, they moved into position. The air shimmered with heat and the machines circled in the distance. Arun chose the largest canyon wall, its high cliffs holding loose stone. He placed himself where he could be seen. With steady breath, he lifted a piece of shining metal he had carried from the house. It caught the sun like a beacon. The nearest machine turned at once. Its hum grew louder as it glided toward him. Its light swept the sand, then fixed on his body. Aaron's chest tightened, but he did not run yet. He waited, heart racing, until the machine was close. Then, with sudden speed, he ran into the canyon. The machine followed, its light cutting through the shadows. The hum grew sharper, echoing off the cliffs. Aaron darted between rocks, his feet pounding the ground. Behind him, the machine moved smoothly, unshaken by the rough terrain. Nira waited higher on the cliff, her eyes fixed on the chase. She shouted in her broken voice. "Closer, Aaron, closer!" Aaron pushed himself forward, lungs burning. The canyon narrowed. Above him, the rocks looked ready to fall. He reached the point he had chosen, then stopped. He picked up a heavy stone and struck the weak wall with all his strength. The sound cracked through the canyon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the wall trembled. Stones broke loose, tumbling down. With a roar like thunder, the cliff face gave way. The machine tried to rise, but it was too late. The weight of rock crashed upon it, crushing its smooth shell. A burst of sparks filled the air, followed by a sharp shriek of metal. The machine shuddered, its lights flickering. Nira climbed down fast, pointing to the broken side. "Heart show Aaron, strike now!" Aaron grabbed a sharp stone and rushed forward. Inside the cracked shell, a small bright core pulsed with light. Without hesitation, he drove the stone into it. The core shattered, and the machine fell silent. For a moment, the canyon was quiet again, only the sound of the wind carrying dust. Aaron stood panting, his body shaking with both fear and triumph. He had destroyed one of the hunters. Nira reached him, her face lit with relief. "You do it." "You strong," Aaron gave a tired smile. "Not me alone. Us together." But the victory was not the end. From far across the desert, the other machines turned. Their lights rose into the sky, scanning toward the canyon. The sound of their engines filled the air. Nira's eyes widened. "They come fast," Aaron gripped her hand. "Then we finish this." Together, they prepared again. As the second machine entered the canyon, Arun and Nira repeated their plan, striking the cliffs, bringing down rock. The machine fell beneath the weight, and again Arun shattered its heart. But the third was faster, stronger. It hovered high, avoiding the falling stones. Nira shouted, "Cannot crush this one. Need other way?" Aaron looked around quickly. His eyes fell on the old well at the canyon's edge. The ground around it was weak from years of water carving beneath. If he could lure the machine there, it might collapse into the pit. "Follow me," he called, pulling Nira with him. They ran toward the well, the machine close behind. Its light cut through the dust, chasing them with deadly focus. Aaron reached the edge and stopped. The ground beneath trembled with weakness. He turned to the machine, lifting the shining piece of metal again. The machine advanced, hovering directly over the pit. Arun gave one sharp kick to the edge of the well. The ground cracked. With a thunderous roar, the earth gave way. Sand and stone collapsed, pulling the machine down into the pit. It struggled, its lights flashing wildly, but the earth swallowed it whole. A burst of sparks lit the pit, then faded into silence. Arun and Nira stood together at the edge, their bodies shaking, their hearts pounding. The hunters were gone. The desert was quiet once more. For a long time they did not move. Then Nira turned to Aaron, her eyes filled with wonder. You fight for me. You risk all. Why? Aaron met her gaze. Because you are not alone. Not while I live. And because this is what it means to be human. We protect, we stand. Tears filled Nira's eyes, glowing faintly in the starlight. She placed both hands on his. Then I am safe. With you. That night, for the first time in many days, they lit a small fire. The flames danced gently and the desert air felt lighter. The hunters were gone, but their memory remained. Aaron knew more would come one day, but he also knew he would not face them alone. He looked at Nira, her face soft in the firelight. She was no longer only a guest in his desert home. She was a companion, a friend, and perhaps something even more. The desert stretched endless and silent around them, but now it was not empty. Together, Aaron and Nira had made it a place of courage, of trust, of life. And in that vast, silent world, a new story began.